Hi everybody, Max here from Baltimore Spirits Company, and today we are again talking about the martini. Why? There's a lot to say about the martini, and since last time all I did was sing, I left a lot unsaid. So today we're going to go a little bit further into the history of the martini, what the common variations are, and we are going to make the original James Bond martini, the Vesper Martini. You also may have noticed I've rearranged my living room. I'm very happy to welcome you to the new No Tips Required set. Happy to have you in our little house of booze here. So why don't I give you a brief tour and we'll get started.
Maybe we could drink together. I'll make a cocktail, you can make it with me. Maybe we could drink together. I'll buy ingredients and teach you how to use them. We can get drunk in the virtual world. The drinks are awfully good and you don't have to tip. You don't have to tip me, you don't have to tip me, you don't have to tip me, you don't have to tip.
I guess the easiest place to start with the martini would be its creation. It's a little hard in this case because nobody actually knows who invented it exactly. I gloss over it in the masterful musical, Martini the Musical, that recently premiered as an online, COVID quarantine premiere 2 weeks ago. If it hadn't have been COVID, fairly certain that was a Broadway release. We were in talks, didn't quite come together, and of course, 2020, so we just decided to release it online, maybe Disney Plus later down the road, unknown. But nobody actually knows. Jerry Thomas, the very famous kind of first celebrity bartender, is credited with the Martinez, which would have been kind of pre-martini, sweet vermouth, and barrel-aged gin, or Old Tom gin cocktail. And some people think that was kind of the precursor to the martini. That's not even entirely clear. Not entirely clear that Jerry Thomas invented that drink either. Some people attribute it to a New York bar. But at some point, people were drinking dry vermouth and gin together, originally as a 50-50 ratio, and that was a dry martini. What we do know is that that happened in the middle of the 1800s. The dirty martini came along a little bit after, and that one we actually know. So about 1901, the Waldorf Astoria in New York was muddling olives into a martini. Olives were already a very common garnish in the dry martini. The Waldorf Astoria started muddling olives into the actual mix, and that in future recipes in about the 30s, we started adding olive brine instead of muddling the olives. So the dirty martini, as much as I prefer a dry martini with a twist, has been around for a long, long time. And that kind of brings us to this idea that the martini has been around for so long and in so many iterations and kind of bastardized in so many ways between watermelon and pomegranate martinis, apple martinis, things that aren't really martinis, that the martini is really all about how you order it. So, of course, the common ones, the vodka martini, which to me is about as far away while I'd still be willing to, shake your hand and look you in the eye and agree that that's probably a martini. Anything beyond a vodka martini is a little sketchy to me. But that is, of course, just substituting vodka for gin. The dry martini would be the most classic. That is gin, dry vermouth, and you would either garnish with a lemon twist or olives. I actually think it's awfully nice to express a lemon over your martini, even if you want to garnish with olives. I think the lemon is important to a dry martini regardless. So, when you order a martini at a bar, bartenders will ask you how you like it. Of course, be specific. Know your martini if you're a martini drinker and order it exactly how you like it. There is also the Vesper Martini, and that's what we're actually going to make today. So the Vesper Martini is named after Vesper Lynd, who was the first kind of female lead in a James Bond book, not a movie, but Casino Royale, the book from 1953. Ian Fleming has James Bond order a martini at the poker table, and Daniel Craig in the later version of Casino Royale orders it word for word, and that is 3 parts gin, 1 part vodka, and a half part Quina Lillet. Now, the problem with this drink, he also does order it shaken, not stirred. And we're going to mess with that all a little bit here. We're not doing the exact cocktail. And one of the reasons we're not doing the exact cocktail is because Quina Lillet does not exist anymore. Lillet revamped their recipe in the 80s, making way for Lillet Blanc, which was kind of at its core a different drink than Quina Lillet. And Quina Lillet was made with cinchona bark. It's an aromatized wine, same as Lillet Blanc now, and same as this Cocchi Americano. But it was made with cinchona bark, which is where we get quinine and tonic water. It's what gives tonic water its bitterness. And they took out the cinchona bark in the kind of revamped 80s version, which is what remains today. So it really messes with that cocktail. Now, if you order a Vesper Martini, some people will just make it with Lillet because the original recipe says Lillet, and we still have it, so we use it. But a lot of bartenders agree that Cocchi Americano, which is an aromatized wine that's been around for a couple hundred years, has never changed their recipe and does in fact use cinchona bark. Might be a little more like Quina Lillet than Lillet Blanc now. So we're going to do Cocchi Americano. We're using this vodka 6100 because I had it in the office. This isn't a particularly vodka-centric show, but we are trying to do this recipe right. Some people have kind of hypothesized that Bond orders his shaken martini. There's kind of two theories. One, because vodka and gin used to be a little higher proof back in the day, and it would help dilute it better. That's probably not the right theory. Another theory is that Bond, being a spy, wanted an extra diluted drink in order to stay a little more sober and keep his wits about him, drink a martini but not get that drunk. Probably also not true, considering all the booze is still going to be in there, just a little fuller in the glass and not tasting as good. The truth is that Ian Fleming was a writer, and while he was a drinker, he wasn't a bartender. And in the future of James Bond books, he didn't really continue to drink martinis. He drank more scotch than anything. The movies really made him a martini guy through and through. So even though the original recipe calls for a shaken martini, there's just not a lot of justification for it to make a good drink. This is a boozy drink. We don't want it to be over diluted. We don't want chips of ice in it. It's a stirred drink. We're trying not to bruise our spirits here. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to sub Quina Lillet for Cocchi Americano, and we are going to stir it, not shake it. Other than that, this is a very classic James Bond Vesper Martini. So let's get started. Cocchi Americano is going to be first, and we are going to do a ½ ounce pour into our mixing glass. Once again, we are starting from the low ABV mixers and working our way up to the main, which will be Shot Tower Gin in this case. The vodka, we are going to do 0.75 ounces. Now, the order is a little funny when Bond orders it. He orders 3 parts, 1 part, and a ½ part, which in the book might read like an ounce of each, which would be an absurdly large cup of gin. So with the same proportion scaled down a little bit, even though we're using a lot of 7.5s in here and quarter ounces and stuff like that, this is going to be the right approximation for a regular sized martini. For the gin, we are going to do 2 1/4 ounce, which is 1 big side for me and 1 small line there. We're going to stir that over ice. Don't be gentle with the ice. You always want to put in more ice than you think you need. You don't want the kind of liquid to overpower the ice and start having it dilute too fast. You want to kind of continue to have the ice be the dominant force in the mixing glass. And once again, keep your stir quiet. That's a good way to know that you are not breaking any ice and stirring too vigorously. You don't want to break the ice, over dilute the drink, create ice chips. So if you get a nice quiet stir like this, you can be sure that your drink will dilute properly, especially for a boozy drink like this. We really want it to be ice cold and not diluted when it comes off of the glass here. And that is about good for me. Strain into a martini or Nick and Nora. And that is gorgeous. Now, Bond orders it with a twist in the book and in the movie, and specifically requests that thin slice of lime peel be left in the drink. So that's what we're going to do here. Always express your lemon peel in the drink. Give it a little wipe around the edge so when you're drinking it, really kind of aroma to the nose and on your lips. And we're just going to drop it in a la Bond. Sometimes when I'm making martinis at home, I like to express it and just toss it because there's something really elegant about crystal clear cocktails with nothing in them, no garnish, no cherry, anything like that. But that's it. That is Vesper Martini. And honestly, it's a rather good drink. It has kind of a bad rap because Fleming wasn't a bartender. And it might just be that, he calls for Gordon's gin specifically, which I would prefer Shot Tower to Gordon's. So maybe that is changing this a little bit. But the Cocchi works really nicely. The bitterness battles the kind of sweetness of this floral gin. I love a twist in a martini, so the lemon peel really speaks to me. It's not too aggressive if you bring the ratio down and you don't pour yourself a 5-ounce martini. It's really nice. I think it's actually pretty balanced. A lot of bartenders have mixed feelings about this, and there's certainly a lot of bartenders that talk about not liking him, but I think it's really good. I really think it's in some ways a more approachable dry martini. The vodka kind of chills out the gin a little bit, so if you like gin but martinis are a little much for you, this might be able to get you into a slightly better place with it. And the Cocchi, in some ways, a more approachable aperitif than vermouth. It's got a little more sugar in it. It's a little sweeter, brings a little more to the table. So I love a dry martini, as you may have seen in my previous video. But this Vesper Martini is not the first and certainly not the last that I will be drinking. So I really enjoy it. I hope you do too. If you do make one, please post it online. Tag Baltimore Spirits Co., especially if you did it after watching this video. I'd love to see y'all's work at home. If you like this video, if you're watching it on YouTube, please follow the channel to see more. If you're watching it on social, thanks for following in the first place. Cheers, everybody. I will catch you next week. And thanks for watching.
I already wrote a song about martinis, and I don't want to write another song about martinis. If you didn't see my song about martinis, then check out the last video I made about martinis. It's right there. Just click it and like and subscribe.